The metal doors of the Galactic Defense Academy training hall slid open with a sharp hiss. Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison watched as 32 cadets walked into the room. They came from 12 different worlds across the galaxy. Some were tall and thin like the bird people from Altair Prime. Others were thick and heavy like the rock-skinned warriors from Crocs. A few moved so fast they were hard to follow, the quick little fighters from the Zenthari homeworld. But Morrison's eyes stopped on one human female near the back of the group. She did not stand out. That was the problem. She worked too hard at not standing out. Cadet Lisa Campbell walked to the far corner of the formation. Her brown hair was pulled back tight in the regulation style. Her uniform was perfect. Not a wrinkle or stain anywhere. Her face showed nothing. No fear, no excitement, no curiosity. Just blank calm. The other cadets were talking. The Altarians whispered to each other in their singing voices. The Croxians compared the scars on their thick arms. The Zenthari chattered, so fast it sounded like machine noise. Even the other humans were making friends, sharing stories about their homeworlds. Lisa said nothing. She stood with her hands behind her back and watched the room. Morrison noticed that her eyes never stopped moving. She looked at the exits, the windows, the other cadets, the weapons rack on the far wall. But she did it so smoothly that most people would not notice. Morrison had been teaching combat for 15 years. He could read people. The nervous ones touched their faces or played with their hair. The overconfident ones stood too straight and smiled too much. The dangerous ones watched everything and everyone, just like Lisa was doing now. "Welcome to Advanced Combat Theory and Application," Morrison said in a loud voice. The room went quiet. "You are here because you passed the basic courses, but knowing how to fight and actually fighting are two different things." He walked to the center of the training mat. "Today we start with hand-to-hand combat assessment. Each of you will spar with me for 1 minute. This is not a test you can fail. It is a test to see what you already know." A tall Altarian cadet raised his hand. "Sir, what if we hurt you?" Morrison smiled. "Do not worry about that." The first cadet was a Croxian named Thak. He was built like a walking boulder, all muscle and thick skin. He charged at Morrison like an angry bull. Morrison stepped aside and used the alien's momentum to throw him across the mat. Thak landed hard but got up laughing. "Good technique, human. My turn." The Croxian was strong but slow. Morrison danced around him for 50 seconds, landing light hits that would have been killing blows in real combat. When time was called, both fighters bowed to each other. The Altarian cadets moved like dancers. They were fast and graceful, but they had no power behind their strikes. Morrison could block their attacks with one hand. The Zenthari were harder to catch, but once grabbed, they were too light to do much damage. The human cadets were mixed. Some had military training from their home worlds. Others had learned to fight in bars and back alleys. A few had obviously never been in a real fight in their lives. Then it was Lisa's turn. She walked to the mat without hurrying. No swagger, no fear, just steady steps. She took her position across from Morrison and waited. "Ready, Cadet Campbell?" "Yes, sir." Morrison had read her file that morning. Born on New Texas Colony, a farming world in the Outer Rim. Parents were crop growers. No military background in the family. Her test scores were decent, but not outstanding. Her instructors described her as adequate and meets minimum requirements. The word adequate was about to become very wrong. Morrison started with a simple jab to test her reflexes. Lisa was not there. She had moved to his left, staying just out of range. He tried a combination of punches. She flowed around them like water, never quite where his fists expected her to be. Then she attacked. Morrison had fought aliens who could bench press a small car. He had sparred with creatures that moved faster than human eyes could follow. He had trained with warriors who had been killing enemies since before he was born. None of that prepared him for Lisa Campbell. She moved like violence itself had taken human form. Her first strike hit a nerve cluster in his shoulder, making his right arm go numb. Her second attack swept his legs. As he fell, her third strike stopped just short of his throat. Morrison found himself on his back, staring at the ceiling. His shoulder was still numb. His legs felt like rubber, and Lisa Campbell was standing over him with her hand extended to help him up. The training hall was completely silent. "Interesting technique, Cadet Campbell," Morrison said as she pulled him to his feet. His voice was steady, but his mind was racing. "Where did you learn that?" Lisa's face was still blank. "I did not learn it anywhere specific, sir. It just felt right." Morrison looked into her eyes. For just a moment, he saw something that made his blood run cold. Then the moment passed, and she was just a quiet farm girl again. "Return to formation, Cadet?" "Yes, sir." As Lisa walked back to her spot, Morrison noticed that every other cadet was watching her. The Croxians looked confused. The Altarians seemed nervous. The Zenthari were chattering quietly to each other. Even the other humans were staring. But Lisa paid no attention to any of them. She took her place in the back corner and stood at attention, her hands behind her back. Her breathing was normal. Her heart rate seemed steady. She looked like someone who had just taken a walk, not someone who had just put a combat instructor on the floor in 30 seconds. Morrison continued with the remaining cadets, but his mind kept returning to Lisa Campbell. Her file said she was a farmer's daughter from a peaceful colony world. Her movement said she was something else entirely, something dangerous. After the last cadet finished, Morrison dismissed the class. "Study chapters 4 through 6 in your combat manual. We will cover defensive positions tomorrow. Dismissed." The cadets filed out, talking excitedly about their performances. Lisa was the last to leave. She walked past Morrison without looking. At him, her steps as quiet as a cat's. Morrison waited until she was gone, then pulled up her file on his datapad. He read it again, more carefully this time. Born on New Texas colony 22 years ago. Parents killed in a farming accident when she was 12. Raised by her uncle until she was 18. Joined the academy at 19. No criminal record, no disciplinary problems, no red flags anywhere. But Morrison had learned to trust his instincts, and his instincts were screaming that there was much more to Lisa Campbell than her file revealed. He made a note to watch her closely in the coming weeks. Something told him that the quiet farm girl who said nothing in combat class was going to be the most dangerous cadet he had ever trained. 3 weeks passed since the first combat assessment. Morrison watched Lisa Campbell every day. She attended every class, completed every assignment, and followed every order. But she did it all without drawing attention to herself. In morning lectures, Lisa sat in the back row. She took notes with a steady hand and never asked questions. When other cadets debated tactics or argued about weapon effectiveness, she stayed silent. Her test scores were always in the middle range. Not the best, not the worst, just average enough to blend in. But Morrison saw things others missed. He noticed how Lisa walked between classes. Most cadets hurried down the corridors talking with friends or checking their datapads. Lisa moved differently. She kept to the walls, staying out of the main flow of traffic. Her eyes constantly scanned the area around her. She memorized which doors led where and which hallways had the fewest people. During weapon training, Lisa handled every gun and blade with familiar ease. But when it came time to demonstrate her skills, she performed just well enough to pass. The instructors marked her down as competent but unremarkable. Morrison began to test her. During a knife fighting class, he paired Lisa with Thak, the massive Croxian who outweighed her by 200 pounds. The alien was confident, even cocky. He had beaten every human cadet so far. The match started with Thak charging forward, his practice blade aimed at Lisa's chest. She sidestepped at the last possible moment. Thak's momentum carried him past her, and she could have struck him in the back. Instead, she stepped away and waited for him to turn around. They circled each other for the full 3 minutes. Thak made aggressive attacks that Lisa avoided with minimal movement. She never counterattacked, never pressed an advantage. When time was called, both fighters were unmarked. "Draw," Morrison announced. Next pair, but Morrison had seen what really happened. Lisa had been in control the entire time. She could have ended the fight in the first 10 seconds. Thak never realized how close he had come to losing. The breaking point came during a tactical simulation. Exercise. The cadets were divided into teams of 6. Each team had to defend a space station against attacking forces controlled by the Academy's computer system. Lisa's team included Thak, 2 Altarians named Vel and Kira, a Xanthari called Quick, and another human named Danny Brooks. Danny was from Earth's military academy and considered himself a natural leader. He immediately took charge of the planning session. "We set up defensive positions at these 3 choke points," Danny said, pointing at the station's main corridors on the tactical display. "Thak and I take the central position. Vel and Kira cover the north approach. Quick and Lisa handle the south." The plan was solid but predictable. Morrison watched from the observation deck as the teams took their positions. The attacking forces would be tough, but the cadets had good defensive positions and overlapping fields of fire. Lisa said nothing during the briefing. She nodded when given her assignment and followed Quick to the southern corridor. But Morrison noticed that she spent a long time studying the station's complete layout, not just her assigned section. The simulation began. Warning lights flashed, red as the attacking forces approached the station. The computer-controlled enemies were fast and well-armed. They hit all 3 defensive positions at once. The northern position fell first. Vel and Kira were good fighters, but they were outnumbered, 3-1. The attackers overran their position in 4 minutes. The central position held longer. Danny and Thak worked well together, the humans' tactics complementing the Croxians' raw strength. But without support from the northern position, they were flanked and eliminated after 8 minutes. That left Quick and Lisa in the south. Morrison expected them to be overwhelmed quickly. The attacking forces were now concentrated in a single group, advancing down the southern corridor toward the 2 remaining defenders. But Lisa was not there. Quick fought alone for 2 minutes, before being eliminated. The attacking forces celebrated their victory and began moving toward the station's command center to complete their objective. Then something strange happened. The lead attacker simply vanished from the tactical display. No weapons fire, no explosion, just gone. A few seconds later, another attacker disappeared, then another. Morrison pulled up the detailed sensor logs. Lisa had left her assigned position before the first attack began. She was moving through the station's maintenance tunnels, a network of crawlways and service passages that ran behind the main corridors. The station was an old design, built for easy maintenance and repair. The maintenance tunnels connected to every major system, including life support, power distribution, and artificial gravity. Lisa had studied the schematics during the briefing and found something the other cadets had missed. She was hunting the attackers from inside the station's walls. The first attacker she caught was checking a side passage. Lisa dropped down from a ceiling maintenance hatch directly behind him. She used a maintenance tool as a weapon, striking the pressure points that would disable his armor's systems. The computer registered him as eliminated. The second attacker was advancing down a corridor when the lights went out. Lisa had accessed the power controls through a maintenance panel. In the darkness, she used the station's own security systems against the invaders. Emergency barriers trapped 2 attackers in a storage bay. She flooded another section with inert gas, forcing 3 more attackers to retreat into an area where she was waiting. One by one, the attacking force was eliminated. Not by superior firepower or defensive positions, but by the station itself, turned into a weapon. Lisa used every system available to her, from the ventilation networks to the waste recycling units. The simulation ended with all attacking forces eliminated and the station secure. Total time, 18 minutes. Lisa had done it alone. Morrison called up the tactical replay. Lisa's movements through the maintenance tunnels looked like a spider hunting in its web. She had turned the entire station into a trap, using the attackers' own assumptions against them. When the simulation ended, the cadets gathered in the briefing room for review. Danny was embarrassed by his team's defeat. Thak was confused about how the simulation had been won. Quick admitted he had no idea what Lisa had been doing. "Campbell," Morrison said, "explain your tactics." Lisa stood at attention. "The attacking force expected us to defend the main corridors, sir. They were not watching the maintenance access points. I used the station's systems to create multiple isolated engagements instead of one large battle. And you decided to abandon your assigned position without consulting your team leader? I informed Quick of my intentions, sir. He chose to maintain his position. Morrison looked at Quick, who nodded. She told me she was going to try something different. I thought she was just scared and running away. The maintenance tunnels were not part of the standard defensive plan, Danny said. We should have stuck to proven tactics. Lisa's expression did not change. Proven tactics work when the enemy follows proven attack patterns, sir, but they were using the station's layout against us. I used the same layout against them. Morrison studied her face. There was no pride in her voice, no satisfaction at having won. She spoke like someone reporting facts, not someone who had just pulled off the most impressive tactical victory he had seen in years. Return to quarters, Morrison told the cadets. We will review the full simulation tomorrow. As the cadets filed out, Morrison made another note in Lisa's file. The quiet farm. Girl was becoming more interesting every day, and more dangerous. That night, Morrison could not sleep. He kept thinking about the way Lisa had moved through those maintenance tunnels. Like she had done it before. Like she knew exactly how to turn a building into a weapon. Her file still showed the same information. Farm girl from New Texas colony. No military training, no combat experience, but files could lie. And Morrison was starting to think that Lisa Campbell's file was the biggest lie he had ever read. The training exercise was supposed to be routine. 24 cadets on a patrol mission through the Kepler asteroid field. They would practice navigation, communication, and basic space operations. Nothing dangerous. Nothing that could go wrong. Morrison watched from the command center as the cadets boarded their training shuttle, the Academy Runner. It was an old but reliable ship, equipped with basic weapons and shields, perfect for teaching young officers how to handle themselves in space. Lisa was the last to board. She carried her gear bag and personal equipment like all the others, but Morrison noticed she had added extra items: a portable scanner, some tools that were not standard issue, and what looked like mining equipment from the geology lab. Campbell, Morrison called out. Why do you have mining gear? Lisa stopped and turned. The mission briefing mentioned asteroid composition analysis, sir. I thought we might need proper tools. It was a reasonable answer. The other instructors nodded approval. Morrison made a note but said nothing more. The shuttle launched on schedule. Morrison watched the sensor displays as it moved into the asteroid field. Everything looked normal. The cadets were following their planned route, practicing standard procedures. Even the communications chatter sounded routine. 2 hours into the mission, everything changed. The first sign of trouble was a garbled transmission from the shuttle, static filled with voices shouting in panic. Then the signal went dead. Morrison tried to raise them on the emergency channel. Nothing. The shuttle's automated beacon was still transmitting, showing its location deep in the asteroid field. But there was no response from the crew. Launch the rescue ship, Morrison ordered. Full emergency response. But before the rescue team could deploy, the Academy runner's beacon started moving. Slowly at first, then faster. Someone had taken control of the shuttle and was flying it deeper into the asteroids. The situation became clear when Morrison received a transmission from an unknown ship. The voice was rough and spoke with the accent of the Outer Rim pirates. Academy ship, this is Captain Rex Cutter of the Bloody Fang. We have your cadets. 24 young officers who will make excellent slaves in the mining colonies. Unless you want to find their bodies floating in space, you will not follow us. Morrison felt his blood turn cold. Pirates in the asteroid field was not impossible, but it was bad luck. The Bloody Fang was a known raider ship, wanted for dozens of attacks on civilian vessels. Rex Cutter was a killer with a reputation for taking hostages and selling them to the worst buyers in the galaxy. Captain Cutter, Morrison replied. Those are Academy cadets under my command. Release them immediately and we will not pursue you. Cutter's laugh was like broken glass. Academy cadets are worth more than regular slaves, human. Young, healthy, and well-trained. The mining bosses will pay triple for quality like that. What do you want? Nothing you can give me, instructor. We are already gone. The transmission ended. Morrison stared at the tactical display showing the shuttle moving deeper into the asteroid field. The pirates had made a smart move. The asteroids would block most sensor scans and make rescue operations nearly impossible. But Morrison had made one mistake in his count. He had said 24 cadets were on the shuttle. The roster showed 25 names. Lisa Campbell was not on that ship. The realization hit Morrison like a punch to the stomach. He pulled up the shuttle's departure logs and checked them twice. 24 cadets had boarded. Lisa had walked up to the shuttle, but the boarding sensors showed she had never actually entered. She was still in the asteroid field, alone, watching her classmates being taken by pirates who would sell them into slavery or worse. Morrison tried to contact her on her personal communicator. No response. Either her equipment was damaged, or she was maintaining radio silence for operational reasons. He hoped it was the second option. The rescue ships launched 30 minutes later, but Morrison knew they would be too late. The Bloody Fang was a fast ship with experienced crew. By the time the rescue teams reached the asteroid field, the pirates would be long gone. But Lisa was still out there. Morrison studied the sensor logs from the training shuttle's final transmission. The attack had happened near asteroid designation, KC-127, a large rock with several mining tunnels left over from an old excavation operation. If Lisa was going to hide anywhere, it would be there. He was right. The first sign that Lisa was alive came 6 hours after the attack. A pirate patrol ship that had been left behind to watch for rescue vessels simply vanished from sensors. One moment it was there, the next it was gone. No distress signal, no explosion, just empty space. Morrison pulled up the detailed sensor logs. There had been a brief energy spike near asteroid KC-127, then nothing. Something had happened to that patrol ship, and Morrison had a good idea what. The second incident happened an hour later. Another pirate ship, this one closer to the Bloody Fang's last known position, went silent in the middle of a routine transmission. The pirates tried to raise their missing vessels on the radio but got no response. Rex Cutter's voice came over the emergency channel, angry and confused. Academy instructor, what kind of tricks are you playing? My ships are disappearing. Morrison keyed his microphone. Captain Cutter, I have no ships in the asteroid field. My rescue teams are still an hour away from your position. Then what is happening to my crews? Morrison looked at the tactical display. 2 pirate ships gone without a trace. The Bloody Fang moving erratically through the asteroids, its crew obviously nervous. And somewhere in that maze of rock and ice, 1 cadet with mining equipment and a very particular set of skills. I think, Morrison said slowly, you have a problem. The third pirate ship lasted longer than the others. Morrison could hear the crew screaming over their open channel as something went wrong aboard their vessel. The transmission cut off with the sound of an explosion, then silence. Rex Cutter was no longer cocky. What is out there? What kind of weapons do you have? No weapons, Captain. Just a very angry farm girl. Morrison was starting to understand what was happening. Lisa had not abandoned her classmates. She had positioned herself to help them the only way she knew how, by becoming the hunter instead of the hunted. The asteroid field was the perfect environment for her tactics. Lots of hiding places, low gravity, and limited visibility. The pirates were used to fighting other ships in open space. They had no experience with ground combat in an asteroid field, but Lisa did. The fourth pirate ship tried to run. Morrison watched on sensors as it broke away from the main group and headed for open space. It made it almost a kilometer before something went wrong with its engines. The ship spun out of control and crashed into an asteroid. When the rescue ships finally arrived, they found the debris of 5 pirate vessels scattered through the asteroid field. The Bloody Fang was intact but drifting, its crew dead or unconscious. The Academy runner was anchored to asteroid KC-127, its 24 cadets alive but shaken, and sitting on the asteroid's surface, covered in rock dust and alien blood, was Lisa Campbell. She was using a portable welder to repair some piece of equipment, working as calmly as if she was fixing a broken fence back on the farm. Morrison's rescue ship landed near her position. He walked across the low-gravity surface, his boots crunching on the rocky ground. Lisa looked up as he approached. Her face streaked with dirt, but her eyes clear and steady. "Cadet Campbell," Morrison said. "Report." Lisa set down her tools and stood at attention. "Mission accomplished, sir. All cadets recovered safely. Enemy vessels neutralized." Morrison looked around at the debris field that had once been 5 pirate ships. "How?" "Mining charges from the geology lab, sir, combined with some improvised weapons and basic asteroid field tactics. The pirates were not expecting ground combat." "You killed 12 sentients, Campbell." Lisa's expression did not change. "Yes, sir. They were going to sell my classmates as slaves. That was not acceptable." Morrison stared at her for a long moment. The quiet farm girl who said nothing in combat class had just eliminated an entire pirate crew using mining equipment and raw determination. And she was reporting it like she had completed a routine training exercise. "We need to talk, Campbell. Back at the academy." "Yes, sir. I know." As they walked back to the rescue ship, Morrison realized that everything he thought he knew about Lisa Campbell was wrong. The girl in the file did not exist. What existed was something much more dangerous and much more valuable. The question was, what was he going to do about it? The debriefing room was cold and silent. Lisa sat alone at a metal table, her hands flat on the surface. She had showered and changed into a clean uniform, but Morrison could still see traces of rock dust under her fingernails. The smell of burned metal and alien blood seemed to follow her into the room. Morrison placed a datapad on the table between them. The screen showed the official report from the asteroid field incident. 12 dead pirates, 5 destroyed ships, 24 rescued. Cadets, 1 cadet responsible for it all. "The preliminary investigation is complete," Morrison said. "The physical evidence supports your account of events. But I need to understand something, Campbell. How does a farm girl from New Texas colony know how to wage guerrilla warfare in an asteroid field?" Lisa looked at him with those steady brown eyes. For a moment she said nothing. Then she leaned back in her chair and spoke in a voice so quiet, Morrison had to strain to hear it. "My real name is Lisa Campbell. That part is true, but the rest of my file is not complete." Morrison activated the room's privacy shield and sat down across from her. "Tell me the real story." Lisa was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was different, older, harder. "I was 12 years old when the Vorthon slavers hit Outpost 7. It was not an official colony, just a mining settlement in the Outer Rim. My parents ran the equipment repair shop. We fixed drilling machines and hauling gear for the miners." Morrison checked his datapad. There was no record of a place called Outpost 7 in Lisa's file. "The Vorthons came at night." Lisa continued. 3 ships, maybe 40 raiders. They wanted workers for their deep space mining operations. Humans are good for that kind of work. We can handle the low gravity and tight spaces better than most species. She looked down at her hands. The attack lasted 20 minutes. They killed anyone who could not work and took everyone else. My parents tried to hide me in the machine shop when the shooting started, but the Vorthons found them anyway. Morrison felt something cold settle in his stomach. "What happened to you?" "I was in the maintenance tunnel under the shop when they broke down the door. It was a narrow space, too small for Vorthon battle armor. I heard my parents screaming. Then I heard the energy weapons fire. Then nothing." Lisa's voice stayed calm, but Morrison could see something moving behind her eyes, something dark and angry. The Vorthons took everyone they could carry and left, but they did not leave the settlement empty. They stationed a cleanup crew to salvage anything valuable, 15 raiders with orders to strip the place clean over the next few months. You were alone with them? For 3 months and 4 days. The maintenance tunnels connected every building in the settlement. I could move anywhere without being seen. The Vorthons knew someone was still alive because supplies kept disappearing, but they could not find me. Morrison was beginning to understand. You learned to hunt them. I learned to survive. The first Vorthon I killed was an accident. I was trying to steal food from their supply cache when one of them came back early. He cornered me in a storage room. I had a plasma cutter I had taken from the machine shop. When he reached for me, I cut his hand off. Lisa spoke about it like she was describing a repair procedure. No emotion, just facts. He started screaming and bleeding. The others came running. I had to kill him completely or he would tell them where I was hiding, so I did. How old did you say you were? 12. Morrison tried to imagine a 12-year-old girl killing an armed alien raider with a plasma cutter. The image made him sick. After that, I knew they would never stop hunting me, so I started hunting them first. The settlement had plenty of mining equipment, explosive charges, cutting tools, heavy machinery. I learned to use all of it. You killed 15 Vorthon raiders when you were 12 years old? 14. The last one I kept alive to send a message to their ship in orbit. I wanted them to know that humans do not make good slaves. We make better killers. Lisa looked directly at Morrison. The rescue ships found me 2 days later. They said I was in shock from trauma. They gave me medical treatment and a new identity. The psychologist said I needed to forget what happened and start a normal life. But you did not forget. You cannot forget something like that. You can bury it, but it is always there, waiting. Morrison understood now why Lisa had been so careful, to blend in at the academy. She was hiding from her own past, trying to be the normal farm girl that her file claimed she was. Why did you tell me this? Because those pirates in the asteroid field were going to sell my classmates as slaves, just like the Vorthons tried to do to my family. I could not let that happen. Morrison studied her face. The academy is going to want a full psychological evaluation. There will be questions about your fitness for duty. I know. There might be criminal charges. 12 deaths is hard to explain even in self-defense. I know that too. Morrison made a decision that would change both their lives. What if I told you there was another option? Lisa raised an eyebrow but said nothing. The academy has special programs. Black operations, deep reconnaissance, situations where normal military tactics do not work. We need people who can think differently. People who can do things that regular soldiers cannot do. You want to use what I am. I want to give you a choice. You can accept medical discharge and try to live a normal civilian life. Or you can stay and help us prepare for the wars that are coming. Lisa was quiet for a long time. Morrison could see her thinking, weighing options, calculating risks. If I stay, what would I be doing? Fighting the kind of enemies who think humans are prey, stopping the people who hurt innocent civilians, making sure that what happened to you never happens to anyone else. And if I refuse? Then you go home to New Texas Colony and try to forget this conversation ever happened. Lisa looked at her, hands again. Morrison could see old scars on her fingers, marks from working with dangerous tools in dark places. I never wanted to be a killer, she said finally. I wanted to fix machines like my parents did. But the galaxy made that choice, for me when I was 12 years old. She looked up at Morrison. If you are going to use what I am, then use it right. Do not send me to fight wars for politics or money. Send me when someone needs to learn that humans are not victims anymore. Morrison nodded. I can promise you that. Then I will stay. Morrison stood up and extended his hand. Welcome to the program, Lieutenant Campbell. Lisa shook his hand. Her grip was strong and steady. Thank you, sir. When do we start? Tomorrow. Your first assignment is already waiting. As Lisa left the debriefing room, Morrison made a call to Academy Command. The quiet farm girl who said nothing in combat class was about to become something new, something the galaxy's predators would learn to fear. The prey had evolved, and it was hungry. The tribunal chamber was packed with Academy officials, military officers, and government representatives from 12 different worlds. Admiral Kate Sullivan, the head of Galactic Defense Command, sat at the center of the panel. Her steel gray hair and cold blue eyes made her look like someone who had seen too many wars. Lisa stood at attention in the center of the room. She wore her dress uniform with no decorations or rank insignia. The charges against her were serious. 12 counts of homicide, destruction of civilian property, operating outside the chain of command. Any one of these charges could end her military career before it started. But the 24 cadets she had saved were also in the room. They sat in the gallery, watching the proceedings with quiet intensity. When the prosecution finished reading the charges, several of them stood up. "Admiral Sullivan," said Danny Brooks, the human cadet who had led the failed defense simulation, "request permission to speak on behalf of Cadet Campbell." Sullivan looked at him with those cold eyes. "This is a military tribunal, Cadet Brooks. You have no standing here." "With respect, Admiral, we have the most standing of anyone. We were the ones those pirates planned to sell as slaves. Campbell saved our lives." Thak, the massive Croxian, stood up next. "The human speaks truth, Admiral. Without Campbell's actions, we would all be dead or worse. She fought like a warrior born." One by one, all 24 rescued cadets stood up. They came from different worlds, different species, different cultures. But they spoke with one voice in defense of Lisa Campbell. Admiral Sullivan raised her hand for silence. "Your loyalty to your fellow cadet is noted, but the law is clear. 12 sentients died in that asteroid field. Someone must answer for those deaths." The prosecution presented their case first. They showed video evidence of the destroyed pirate ships. They detailed the brutal efficiency of Lisa's attacks. They painted a picture of a dangerous killer who could not be trusted with military authority. "The defendant used mining charges to blow apart an entire ship," the prosecutor said. "She hunted down fleeing pirates like animals. She showed no mercy, took no prisoners, and left no survivors. This is not the behavior of a soldier. This is the behavior of a predator." When it was Morrison's turn to speak for the defense, he stood slowly. He had spent 3 days preparing his statement, but now he threw away his notes and spoke from the heart. "Admiral Sullivan, distinguished members of this tribunal, I have been training military officers for 15 years. I have seen courage and cowardice, brilliance and stupidity, heroes and criminals. Lisa Campbell is something I have never seen before." Morrison walked to the center of the room. "The prosecution calls her a predator. They are right, but they are wrong about what kind of predator she is. She is not the kind that hunts the innocent. She is the kind that hunts other predators." He gestured toward the gallery where the rescued cadets sat. "Those pirates were not random criminals, they were slavers. They had killed hundreds of civilians and sold thousands more into bondage. They came to that asteroid field planning to add 24 young officers to their collection." Morrison's voice grew stronger. "Campbell did not hunt them for sport or revenge. She hunted them because they threatened people she had sworn to protect. She used every tool available to her because the stakes were life and death, and she succeeded where conventional tactics would have failed." Admiral Sullivan leaned forward. "Commander Morrison, are you suggesting that we should encourage this kind of vigilante behavior?" "I am suggesting that we recognize what we have found. Campbell is not just a cadet who got lucky. She is a weapon that the galaxy created when it tried to break her as a child. The question is not whether we should punish her for using that weapon. The question is whether we are smart enough to aim it at the right targets." The tribunal recessed for 2 hours while the panel deliberated. Lisa waited in a holding room, staring out the window at the Academy's training grounds. Morrison sat with her, but neither of them spoke. When the tribunal reconvened, Admiral Sullivan stood to read the verdict. "After careful consideration of all evidence and testimony, this tribunal finds that Cadet Lisa Campbell acted in defense of fellow Academy personnel against hostile forces engaged in illegal slaving operations. The deaths of 12 pirates, while regrettable, were necessary to prevent the capture and enslavement of 24 young officers." Lisa felt a weight lift from her shoulders. But Sullivan was not finished. "However, this tribunal also finds that Campbell's methods, while effective, demonstrate capabilities and psychological profiles that require special consideration. Standard military service would not be appropriate for someone with her particular skill set." Morrison tensed. This could go either way. "Therefore, this tribunal orders that Cadet Campbell be transferred immediately to the Special Operations Division for advanced training in unconventional warfare and deep reconnaissance. She will be promoted to the rank of lieutenant and assigned to classified operations requiring her unique abilities." The gallery erupted in cheers from the rescued cadets. Lisa remained at attention, but Morrison saw a small smile cross her face. Admiral Sullivan continued, "Lieutenant Campbell, you will report to Colonel Harris at the Special Operations Facility tomorrow morning. Your new mission will be to hunt down the kind of predators who prey on innocent civilians throughout the galaxy." "Yes, ma'am," Lisa said. "Thank you, ma'am." As the tribunal dispersed, Morrison approached Lisa. "Congratulations, Lieutenant. You got what you wanted." "Did I? I am not sure I wanted any of this." Morrison looked at her seriously. "The galaxy is full of people like those pirates, slavers, raiders, and worse. They think humans are soft targets because we come from peaceful worlds and believe in diplomacy. You are going to teach them differently." Lisa nodded slowly. "What kind of missions will I be doing? The kind where regular soldiers would fail? Deep space reconnaissance, hostage rescue, elimination of high-value targets. You will work alone most of the time, in situations where there is no backup and no second chances. That sounds lonely. It will be. But it will also save lives. Every slaver ship you stop, every pirate base you destroy, every innocent person you rescue, that is someone's family who gets to stay together." Lisa looked out the window again. "My parents would have been proud of that. I think they would be proud of you no matter what." 3 days later, Lisa Campbell disappeared from the Academy's official records. Her file was classified at the highest levels. But stories about her spread anyway, whispered in barracks and mess halls across the galaxy. The human who said nothing in combat class but fought like a born warrior. The farm girl who had learned that sometimes the only way to protect the innocent was to become something the guilty would fear. The living proof that humanity's greatest strength was not their technology or their diplomacy, but their ability to become whatever the situation demanded. In the years that followed, pirates and slavers throughout the Outer Rim would learn to fear quiet human females who watched too carefully and moved too precisely. They would learn that when they preyed on the innocent, something was hunting them in return. They would learn that the prey had evolved into the apex predator. And by the time they understood that lesson, it was already too late to run.